If you're watching this, this is the training think tank Locomotion and Flow playlist. This is one of the movements that we use to teach and prescribe movement. Locomotion and flow are a concept that has become a lot more popular nowadays on Instagram, on YouTube, and on social media accounts that are associated with people that label themselves as part of the movement culture. Locomotion for me is really just a word to describe moving from one place to another. It's kind of synonymous with movement. And in my training career and in my career as a coach, I found that one of the most important aspects of movement in terms of locomotion is first and foremost being able to move around on your feet. We're a bipedal species, and so in our training programs, we emphasize first and foremost being able to run well. And that's run well, fast, slow, long, changing direction, having kinesthetic awareness of the feet, and trying to teach people how to run in a variety of different ways. However, in physical training, outside of that, there are ways of using locomotion and flow style training to more effectively make the body adaptable and being able to create a ton of positions with the body. So the way I classified this category is gait-based locomotion, which is centered around running and being on your feet, animal walks, which are more of the popularized stuff that you've probably seen Conor McGregor do with Ido Portal, flow work, which is commonly done by a lot of people in the movement culture, dancers, break dancers. It is becoming a bit more popular in just normal training cultures now, but that would be the third part of the category, and the fourth would be brachiation style locomotion. So our playlist is split up into those four categories. For most people's training goals, if they were to look at somebody doing locomotion and flow work, they would think that's silly and doesn't apply to me. But I wanted to explain a couple scenarios that would explain how we use locomotion training to help athletes improve in their specific goals. So let's say you spend a lot of time in weightlifting shoes performing Olympic lifts. What generally happens over time is your feet become a little bit weaker and less coordinated because your foot doesn't have to stabilize against the floor, because you have a really flat, stable base and the shoe is basically, holding your foot in and giving you a base of support. It's very different than how our feet actually interact with the floor without shoes. Then the intrinsic musculature of our foot starts to deteriorate. And obviously your unilateral ability to support on your body weight on one leg would drop because you're doing all of your work bilaterally with both feet on the ground. And generally, if you're pushing yourself that hard weightlifting, you're probably resting a lot to make sure that you're more powerful and explosive. So unilateral strength starts to drop. So this is where foot strength-based gait work, gait-based locomotion style stuff, working on A skips, B skips, warm-up series, and making sure that that gets put in the front part of a workout will allow somebody to maintain movement quality over time in their feet, ankles, knees, and hips that spends a bulk of their training time doing something that they love with weightlifting shoes on, but allows them over time not to have a deterioration in their movement quality as they age and become more adapted to just being able to move a barbell with weightlifting shoes on. So it's a way to be able to counteract movement deterioration when you're trying to be a specialist. Another example, many people have gotten into gymnastics now that both the movement culture and CrossFit has kind of popularized those training tools. However, many of the people, specifically in the CrossFit community, that do gymnastics will spend most of their time using a pull-up bar or using rings or with both hands fixed on a flat surface. So over time, if you train like that, you can lose some of the ability to dissociate your shoulders and scapula because they're usually operating with a barbell overhead, holding on to something, stabilizing here, and your arms are always working bilaterally. So people get very blocky and stiff up here and don't have the ability to be able to control and coordinate their scapula in different planes of motion. So doing brachiation style locomotion like pegboard type work, monkey bar work, rope traverses, it allows the body to be able to be novel in new patterns and allows the body to be able to stabilize while hanging just with one arm, which will improve grip strength and overall scapula function and core stability. So brachiation style warm-ups, cool downs, and progressively loading structures in brachiation, even though they might not directly make something like muscle ups or chest to bars better, allow your movement quality not to deteriorate, not to get stiff, not to get some impingement style symptoms as a result of getting overly hypertrophied in certain areas and becoming imbalanced from a muscular perspective. And then let's say a third example. You want to compete at the CrossFit Games, 2017 CrossFit Games, they brought out the obstacle course. One of the portions of the obstacle course, there was a cargo net that people had to climb on or had to crawl under. See a lot of people that get to that and have a really difficult understanding of how to get their center of mass that low and quickly go across however long that obstacle was, maybe like 6 to 10 feet. So being able to proficiently practice army crawl, bear crawl, lizard crawl, or whatever you would specifically do will allow when you get into one of those competitive environments and just have to be able to get under that thing as fast as possible, it will allow you to have a little bit more reactive instinct to take a risk instead of dropping down to the ground and slow log rolling over. So locomotion can actually be an effective style of training for somebody that wants to do obstacle course training, either just like Spartan Race obstacle course, or if you're intending on being a CrossFit Games athlete and you have to be able to do that. So effectively being able to transition from running on your feet and getting down to the ground quickly and being able to go underneath something quickly is obviously a practical way to use locomotion style training and use animal walks to your benefit. So these three examples should be enough to help you understand why you would use this style of training. And I know when I first saw it, I was like, what are these people doing? Like, that's what children do, acting like an animal and moving around like an animal. But over time, as I actually explored that with myself and my athletes, now I might not make that a bulk of my training. I might not have my athlete do 80% of their time walking around like an animal, but even though it looks funny, it actually does have a very practical use in training programs that I have for field sport athletes, CrossFit athletes, or really any type of training goal. It can be a pretty effective way to be able to create some forward progress with regards to how somebody moves. Like I stated earlier, the training videos in this playlist are organized into gait-based locomotion, animal walks, flow, and brachiation. For gait-based work, if you have limited experience, you're probably best just working on mimicking the demos of the warm-ups, the A sequence and the B sequence, and adding foot strengthening work in every day. Just very low volume and just getting comfortable with those specific patterns. It's probably gonna feel very awkward and uncoordinated at first, but before trying to advance past that or do a bunch of run-specific training, it's better to try to master those basics. For animal walks and flow, for both of those two categories, I don't really believe there's a right or wrong way of doing this type of movement training. I think it's just more about becoming aware and in control of your movement. We've illustrated an upper body flow, a lower body flow example, a running specific flow, and a video with some animal walks. The goal of this would really be to find tight areas in your body and work them out, to lower systemic tension, to have fun and not really have a real outcome of those sessions, create motion in places that are stuck and not moving. And then I think most importantly, which I'm probably not as good at, explore. Just figure out how to move in different ways and create transitions from one movement to another movement to another movement, and try to think of yourself as creating some sort of a choreographed performance with your body. I know that seems very strange, and even to my mind, I'm like, why am I doing this if there's no specific outcome? Like, what am I trying to accomplish from just doing this specific stuff? I have found over time that as I've tried to be more creative and just get down on the ground with no specific plan. Nobody told me what to do, and just do something and just make stuff up. I have found that my body has been able to move in different ways, and you go from one movement and try to transition into another and realize that you kind of run into a problem. Like, how do I seamlessly get into this next position without having to kind of like use my hand and get up in an awkward, non-coordinated way? And over time, as you do that and as you solve those movement problems, you do actually become a better mover. So I would go into those styles of training. Just looking at the videos as examples, you can probably follow along for a little while on those examples that I've illustrated or that we've illustrated, and then over time you really should be doing those on your own and figuring out what type of rest profile, how much of each you're doing, and figure out over time what's the best for your specific goals for whatever you're trying to accomplish movement-wise. And then for brachiation, we illustrated a couple of examples on monkey bars. If you're not strong enough to do that, you can hang in just different variations and just get comfortable hanging. Hang with your feet supported, hang on the pull-up bar, get to the point that you can passively hang, that you can actively hang, that you can do scat pull-ups, that you can do arch body pull-ups. And when you get comfortable doing all of those, then add the traversing in. Outside of that, we're not climbers here. We're not coaching people that do American Ninja Warrior, but if you did want to take your brachiation farther than that, you'd probably have to go to climbing gyms or go to a gym that specializes in doing American Ninja Warrior work. But for general shoulder health and general movement practice, just being able to brachiate well and do brachiation style training in the ways that we've illustrated, I feel is enough to be able to create scapula, lat, shoulder function, and be able to create enough variance that you can be healthy in your upper body. So the goal there is just to get stronger hanging from one arm and traversing. It should have a positive impact on your shoulder health, your shoulder strength, your grip strength. If you feel any pain doing those, obviously, then create some regressions for yourself. So there's a lot of information contained within these videos, and why they're all selected and trying to articulate that is probably going to be difficult, but it's best for you to just continue to apply those and continue to practice locomoting in all of the different ways that we've illustrated and figure out what's effective for you to be able to create movement. Like is true for all the movement playlists on our YouTube channel. This is one of many that acts as a part of a bigger whole. So to improve your movement quality, you need to go through all of the movement tools playlists and think of them as acting synergistically with one another to, over time, be able to improve your movement quality. For anyone that's taken the movement course, Chapter 3 covers movement tools, and in the movement tools, we cover all of these more extensively. I cover where the inspiration for each category comes from, how to write training prescriptions with each tool, how to progress the training tools, what each specific movement tool is used for, and you've seen sample programs that utilize all of these over the course of 4, 6, 8, 12 weeks. And so you'll have a much better understanding of how to think about this in terms of long-term progress. As you go forward now, you have everything that you need to get better. You have every tool from a movement perspective that we could think of. You understand how to use them, you understand why to use them, and you have a bunch of videos in each playlist that illustrate the actual use of those movement tools. So good luck, and hopefully your movement quality gets better.